Hey guys, what's up? What are you doing? I'm just coming in front, was just setting it up. So today is our episode 7 of Quality Potions and I'm back. So let's get started. Let's talk about today's topic is directive principles of state policy. And again a very important topic. We just covered fundamental rights in 3 classes and I will take 2 classes to finish directive principles, and this is an amazing series on Quality Potions. So I'll really appreciate it if you have any doubts or any queries. Please ask it in the comment section below, and then like tomorrow's session I will take it up in the last 5 minutes. So I'll go through the comments today, and tomorrow we will discuss the second part of the DPSP, wherein the criticism, the significance, what are the relationship between fundamental rights and DPSP. So today let's get started with the DPSP. So first we need to codify the word. What do you mean by DPSP? So DPSP basically means directive principles of state policy. So here it means that it is like directing the state to make certain policies in accordance with these principles. तो कल को अगर स्टेट को मान लो MGNREGS चलानी है, ठीक है, महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी स्कीम, उस केस में क्या होगा, अगर वो करना है आपको तो आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि डीपीएसपी क्या होता है. तो आर्टिकल 39 बी और सी के तहत वो स्कीम लगेगी कि एक तो इक्वल पे और इक्वल वर्क होना चाहिए और एवरीबडी शुड गेट समथिंग टू डू सम जॉब. सो दैट इज अ डीपीएसपी, दैट इज व्हाई दैट स्कीम इज देयर. अर्लियर इट वाज अ डीपीएसपी कि 6 to 14 एज ग्रुप में यू शुड बी गिवन एजुकेशन फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट. नाउ इट इज अ फंडामेंटल राइट. सो स्टेट मेड अ पॉलिसी इज राइट टू एजुकेशन एक्ट टू गिव इफेक्ट टू अ डीपीएसपी. So DPSP are basically like a guiding pole. Ki I have to become like Usain Bolt, I have to become like Sachin Tendulkar, I have to become like, let's say, Viv Richards, I have to become like Lata Mangeshkar. So that is like the pinnacle. But obviously today you can't play like Sachin Tendulkar, right? That is what you aspire to. So this is the key word. So when you have enough time and resources, in that case the state aspires to go there. सो आप चाहते हो वहां पे जाना. डीपीएसपी का मतलब वो होता है कि एक आइडियल स्टेट किसी जमाने में तो बनेगा. तो चालू करते हैं. सबसे पहले जो बेसिक्स है इसका वो ये है कि ये पार्ट 4 ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में है. आर्टिकल 36 से 51 के बीच में ये आपका पड़ता है, ठीक है. फिर पार्ट 4A है. 4A जो है वो फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज है. सो दिस इज आर्टिकल 36 to 51 डीपीएसपी. इसको कहां से लिया गया? आयरिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ 1937, which in turn is from Spanish Constitution. बट फिर भी पूछे तो आंसर है आयरिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, ठीक है. आयरिश मतलब आयरलैंड वाला, ओके. सो आयरिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ 1937 से इट इज डिराइव्ड एंड इट इज आल्सो टेकन, इट इज सिमिलर टू इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शंस, ओके. इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शंस, आई ऑफ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट ऑफ 1935. सो दिस इज सिमिलर टू दैट. So just remember this. Obviously it is the biggest bone of contention. I have already told you enough times that just directive principles of state policies are non-justiciable in a court of law. They are not enforceable in a court of law. So like even though they are not justiciable in a court of law, the state should keep them in mind while the state is formulating the laws. This is the most important significance of directive principles. They will direct the state to make certain policies. That is all DPSP technically does. That is all. And whenever time comes, whenever we have enough resources, let's say we will give them universal health care, we will ensure universal basic income, and so on and so forth. Eventually, whenever we have resources, we will look at our DPSP and we will implement them. Now, Article 36, that is the first article. It defines what is state, okay. So state is the same as in the fundamental rights. So if you see the part 3 which deals with fundamental rights, that also defines state. So state meaning here is exactly the same. So the meaning of state in DPSP and fundamental right is exactly the same. So please remember that. That is what Article 36 says. And then Article 37 immediately. So the first thing they make clear कि state is state, okay, as the same as fundamental right. Article 37 says that it is not enforceable in a court of law. So this is clear, I guess, right? Absolutely clear that it is not enforceable in a court of law. No matter what you do or what you try, it cannot be enforced in a court of law. It is not justiciable and not legally enforceable. And then it is economic social and political. So just remember ESP. So that is what DPSP. There are three types of them. Gandhian. I'll talk about them later. But they all strive towards economic, social, and political equality. Basic minimum should be given to everyone for ensuring a modern democratic state. So this is also important. They will ensure a modern democratic state. Okay. Now objective is to come close to like achieving ideals of justice, liberty, equality, which are there in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So DPSP are there to ensure that whatever we have decided in our preamble, to give them effect. Now concept of welfare state. What is a welfare state? Welfare state is a state which exists for the welfare of its citizen, and that is the sole and the most paramount aim of that state, that citizens should have equality, citizens should have opportunity, citizens should lead a good life, citizens should be safe, citizens should be secure, they should have health services, educational services, etc., etc. So that is a welfare state, not a political state, not a police state rather. So it should not be like a military controlled state, it should be a welfare state. Now in short, they are what we call as, like usually fundamental rights are negative, so they are positive obligations of the state. So whenever you have time and resources, the state will do this. Okay, so they are positive obligations of the state when the state has a duty to enact the laws as and when time is right. So now biggest debate is why DPSP are not enforceable in a court of law, why DPSP are not justiciable in a court of law. Any sane person will have these doubts, right? Ki why are they not enforceable in a court of law, why they are not justiciable in a court of law. See, the first and the foremost thing is the founding fathers, our nation's founding fathers, they said that India was very poor, like Britishers had exploited us like anything, and our literacy rate was around 10-11% when we got independence. It was pathetic, it was a very bad time. State did not have enough resources to feed the population, forget about ensuring that everyone has job and universal basic health and income. That was not simply possible. So state said that right now we do not have resources, so we cannot make it enforceable and legally justiciable, because that will not be good on our part. So founding fathers said that fundamental rights should be justiciable and they should be bare minimum. Like there should not be any untouchability, like there should not be any titles. But directive principles of state policy, they can be, again I am using this word, they can be not enforceable in a court of law. That's what founding fathers thought. Because the first and the foremost is money, okay? Or let me draw the Indian symbol now. So we don't have enough financial resources. Simply नहीं दे यार, पैसे ही नहीं दे, कहाँ से आप DPS पे करोगे? आपको पता है एक NREGS स्कीम में कितने हजारों करोड़ रुपए लगते हैं, मतलब you have just no idea. इतने पैसे ही नहीं थे हमारे पास. अगर आपको हर मतलब प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर खोलना है, हर ब्लॉक लेवल पे कम्युनिटी हेल्थ सेंटर खोलना है, इट इज सिंपली इम्पॉसिबल एट दैट टाइम. फिर जो पॉपुलेशन थी वो बहुत ज्यादा डाइवर्स थी, बहुत ही ज्यादा बैकवर्ड थी. तो उसके लिए एक सिंपल ऐसे जादू की छड़ी बना दो तो वो बोलेगा ऐसे एनफोर्स करना है, वो ऐसे करना है, तो उससे बहुत ज्यादा इश्यूज क्रिएट हो जाएंगे. सो द सेकंड वन इज वास्ट डाइवर्सिटी एंड बैकवर्डनेस विल नॉट अलाउ द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, क्योंकि पॉपुलेशन का एक बेसिक लिटरेसी तो होनी चाहिए अगर डीपीएसपी को आपको एनफोर्स करना है. तो दैट इज रियली इंपॉर्टेंट, यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. Then third is we had too many things to handle. We had to handle the partition of India. We had to handle the Jammu and Kashmir issue. We had to handle the princely states. We had to handle the state reorganization committee. We had to handle so many things. Literally our plate was completely full. We had to integrate India. Then there was a Hindi versus English debate. Then there was 5-year planning. Then there was IITs, AIIMS, IIMs. All these had to be made, right? Then there was nuclear, ISRO was coming up. So we had our plate full, so they said, okay boss, let's take a back step and we will do it later on. So it should be free to decide the time, the order, the place and the mode of implementing DPSP. तो स्टेट डिसाइड करेगा कि कब सही टाइम है. जैसे राइट टू एजुकेशन 60 साल बाद आया था 2009 में, क्योंकि तब पैसे थे, तब कर सकते थे, इसीलिए लिटरेसी रेट आज 76% के करीब है. अभी बढ़ के 80% के करीब हो गई होगी अभी तक, लेकिन नेक्स्ट जो भी सेंसस होगा उसमें 80+ ही निकलेगी. फिर नॉन जस्टिशिएबल, तो इनका यूज ही क्या है? पीपल से दे आर यूजलेस, नोबडी कैन लाइक एनफोर्स देम इन अ कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ. सो व्हाट इज द पॉइंट? व्हाट इज द पॉइंट? सो द पॉइंट हियर सर एंड मैम इज दैट इज डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट दैट देयर इज नो कंपल्शन लीगली, देयर इज अ पॉलिटिकल कंपल्शन. because the party in the power has to be voted again after 5 years, right? Nobody rules for perpetuity. So if they do not implement DPSP, if they do not fulfill their promises, then the people will kick them out. So this is again a very, very important point. So they are fundamental in the governance of the country, because like the legislature will look up to something, right? What needs to be done next? Okay, अब पैसे आ गए तो क्या करें? So they will look at DPSP. अच्छा ये करते हैं, अच्छा ये करते हैं, ठीक है? They play a crucial role in conclusion when the courts have to decide whether the ये act null and void करना चाहिए कि नहीं करना चाहिए. So they play a really, really crucial role in the how the court interpret it. So the interpretation of the court like is dependent a lot on how this is to be done. Then the Supreme Court can overrule Article 14 and 19 to give effect to certain DPSP. So DPSP are slightly at a higher pedestal than fundamental rights. You have to remember that. Okay. If a parliament wants to make a law to give effect to DPSP under Article 39B and C, then if the Article 14 and 19 are violated, okay, equality and freedom of speech, expression, profession, lot of freedoms. So in that case, that article will not be null and void. That law will not be null and void, and Supreme Court will allow it to be considered as a law. And Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that this statement, which I have already told you, that any government which wants on popular vote can hardly ignore DPSP, because after 5 years they will have to come back again. Okay, if they ignore, they will have to answer before the electorate. So obviously electorate will not elect them again, so they focus on DPSP. Then Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer said that no ministry responsible to the people can afford light-heartedly to ignore the provisions of the Part 4 of the Constitution. Basically same ही चीज वापस बोल रहे हैं उसी चीज को, but you can quote these quote, it will really help you in your exams. Then unanimous voice of Constituent Assembly under Article 37 says that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of state to apply these principles in law. So that is why fundamental rights and DPSP are considered heart, soul, backbone, cornerstone of the Constitution. And it is it takes a middle path, okay, like not getting too extreme कि इनको legally enforceable कर दो और बिल्कुल ऐसे लिखो ही मत Constitution, somewhere between middle. So now let us talk about evolution of DPSP. How did DPSP came into being? So the first thing is you must have heard about Kautilya. So he said that king is responsible to his praja, yani ki the people under him, to the kingdom. King is responsible for that. So since king is responsible, he needs to make certain policies to improve them. Then they will give you civil rights, economic rights, political rights, social rights, which I have already told you. Now in British period, as you might have heard about Dadabhai Naoroji and drain of wealth theory of his. So there was a complete and utter economic exploitation of Indians, absolute ruthless exploitation. You can't even imagine. Okay, so that is why we were deprived of social rights, economic rights, political rights, all the rights. Hence, we had to give ourselves, ensure ourselves that some basic economic, social and political rights has to be there. And they have to epitomize the ideals of the people of India. And they evolved along with the constitutional form of government. So जब बन रहा था तो जो हमारी ideals थे independent struggle के, कि we were economically exploited, we were political freedom was taken away, social rights were abolished. So in that case we really had to do this. So what is constitutionalism? Basically constitutionalism says that there is a body called as constitution, and it will limit the government in its power, and it will limit the government in its capabilities to make law, and that is the only way a government should work. So it says that government can and should be legally limited in its powers, and that its authority or legitimacy depends on its observing these limitations. So otherwise the government is illegitimate, बेकार है government. फिर दूसरा बात है welfare state पे. Now what is a welfare state? Welfare state basically exists for welfare of people, and it is grounded in a set of inalienable rights of the individuals. So that is what we call as a welfare state. वेलफेयर स्टेट सेज दैट हमारा जो एग्जिस्टेंस का सोल पर्पस है वो लोगों की मदद करना है, लोगों का भला करना है. दे शुड फील सेफ, दे शुड फील सिक्योर, दे शुड फील दैट दे आर लिविंग इन अ गुड स्टेट एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. एंड बेसिकली इट इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक राइट्स ऑफ सिटीजंस which are to be extended to them by the state by exacting necessary laws. Okay, so state will make some laws regarding that, and the form of instructions or direction to the state. बेसिकली इट इज जस्ट टाइप ऑफ कि आप बच्चे को बताओ कि ये बुरी आदत होती है, अच्छी आदतें होती है, तो इन द टाइम व्हेन ही इवॉल्व्स सो ही विल स्टे अवे फ्रॉम ड्रग्स, अल्कोहल एक्सेट्रा, बट मतलब व्हेनेवर द टाइम कम्स, सो डीपीएसपी इज समथिंग लाइक दैट. Then it is a unique blend of, जैसे कि मैंने बताया था, socialism, Gandhism and Western liberal thoughts and the ideals of freedom struggle of India. So there are three types of DPSP: Gandhian DPSP, socialistic DPSP, and Western liberal DPSP. And they will promote a comprehensive social, economic, and administrative structure of a modern democratic state. So I think these points are absolutely clear now. So this was everything related to the introduction of directive principles of state policy. Now let me take you to the classification of directive principles of state policy. Again, every year in prelims, one question you can expect out of it, that which of the following DPSP is Gandhian, match the following Gandhian, liberal and socialist. So let's get started. First of all, let me just rub it once. So they will ask you this question, that are classification a part of the constitution? So answer here will be a big no. Okay, just remember that a big no. No, this classification is not the part of the constitution. These are nowhere the classification is mentioned in the constitution. This is done for the academic research purposes and scholarly purposes, but they are divided into three parts. One is socialist, one is Gandhian, one is Western liberal. So these are the three categories which you need to remember. So now we are clear that it is not officially there. So let's start with, we have already covered article 36 and 37. So 36 said that state is equals to state in part 3 and 4. 37 said that they are not enforceable but they are fundamental in the governance of the country. 38 says that it talks about justice. Okay, so we have to go from 38 to 51. It is 36 to 51. So 38 is socialist principles. So I will cover the socialist principles first. 38 says that justice, social, economic and political, social order, you will have to have welfare and you will have to have minimum inequalities in income. So I will just cover the keywords so that you can remember them from exam point of view. So whenever it talks about social, economic and political justice, it's talking about minimum inequality in income. That is, the income should be as equal as possible. Then it should provide welfare, it should provide social order, etc. Then 39A, this is the second one. It says that it should be free legal aid to the poor. So for example, if a poor person, let's say he is arrested by the police, so in that case it is very important for us to let the police know that he needs to be given a legal counsel from the state side, because obviously he can't afford thousands and thousands of rupees of lawyer fees, so he will need to be given a legal counsel from the state side. So that has to be done. Now article 41 talks about right to education, right to work. Okay, so these are the important thing which you need to understand. So article 41 also becomes a socialist principles. You can remember the keywords only and they will help you. Article 42 talks about humane conditions for work and maternity relief. So whenever like maternity relief has to be provided, the work conditions can't be such that you are working for 20 hours a day in a coal mine 60 meters below the earth and you can die any time. So these are not like humane work conditions. You will have to be working in a humane work conditions, humane work environment. Then article 43 talks about living wage and decent standard of life. Like you can't be asked to work on 2 rupees per hour. So that is like absurd. So you have to be given like a decent wage so that you have a decent standard of life. Then article 43A talks about the participation of the workers in the management of industries. That is, the workers should make some sort of a union and they should be like responsible for the management of the industries. But it does not give them the right to do strike and do like chakka jam and do factory बंद, वो सब right नहीं है. यहाँ पे बस management में participate करने का right है. Article 47 talks about nutrition and public health. So if you see all these principles aim at कि everybody should have basic opportunity, the labor class should not be exploited, everybody should be given equal income, equality, basic minimum wages, maternity relief, social justice, political justice, economic justice. So they are talking about eliminating the undue advantages between various classes of citizens. So that is the point of socialist principles. Now let's talk about article 39. This is the biggest socialist principle and you will need to bear with me. So article 39A says that It should have right to adequate means of livelihoods for all citizens. Adequate means of livelihood. You can't ask them to do manual scavenging, which are abhorring practices, and unfortunately still they continue in India, and it is really a sad state of affairs. Article 39B and C are there. So 39B says that equitable distribution of material resources of the community for the common good. So you need to have equitable distribution. So that is the keyword. And Article 39C says that you need to prevent the concentration of wealth. So the first is talking about equitable distribution of material resources, and Article 39C talks about that the entire wealth should not be concentrated in few hands. So this is again important concept A, B, C. Now let's talk about D. D is talking about equal pay for equal work for men and women. So most of these rights, if they are in 39B and C, B talks about equitable distribution and C talks about prevention of concentration of wealth. So if there is any law which gives effect to these conditions, even if it violates Article 14 or Article 19, even in that case it is still valid. So just remember that it is legally enforceable. Then Article 39E talks about preservation of health and strength of the workers and children against forcible abuse, and 39F talks about opportunity for healthy development of children. So these are the socialist principles. So they all talk about basic minimum program. Now Gandhian DPSP is very clear. So Gandhiji were against alcohol, they were in favor of cow, they were in favor of cooperative society, they were in favor of cottage industry, they were in favor of village level panchayats, and they were in favor of scheduled castes and village panchayats. So whenever you talk about these 6 topics, it means it is a Gandhian DPSP. Now let us see. Article 40 talks about empowerment of village panchayat. So it's very easy to match it, right? Whenever it talks about village panchayat, you can directly match Gandhian DPSP. 43 talks about cottage industry should be there in rural areas. So again, like it is pretty clear. Then 43B, which was added by 97th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2011. And it was there to for related to cooperative societies. So here the article is 43B. What does it state? It states to promote voluntary formation, autonomous functioning, democratic control and professional management of cooperative societies. So that is Article 97, Constitutional Amendment Act 97, Article 43B. Now 46 talks about promotion of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and weaker section of the society. 47 talks about alcohol and intoxicating drugs should be prohibited, या जितना minimize कर सकते हैं. And 48 is protect cow, here it is, and prevent cow slaughter. So did you see all these 6 are covered here? So these 6 are the Gandhian DPSP. Again I will repeat: empowerment of village panchayat, cottage industry in rural area, cooperative societies, promotion of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and weaker sections, intoxicating drugs and alcohol, and prohibits cow, milch and draught cattle slaughter. Like cattle should not be slaughtered. Now let us talk about the third one, which is liberal intellectual principles, that is LIP. So what is LIP? So it will talk about, assume that you are in a Western Europe or USA kind of a scenario. So first of all they will say that uniform civil code should be there. All the citizens should be treated alike irrespective of their religious belief. So that is the first one, that is the liberal intellectual principles. You should have a uniform civil code. What do you mean by uniform civil code? So one is the criminal code. Let's say if you commit a murder, it does not matter whether you are Hindu, whether you are Sikh, whether you are Jain, whether you are Muslim, whether you are Christian. Murder will be tried under a criminal court of law and it will be the same to all the Indians. Let's say if you commit robbery, if you commit dacoity, if you physically harm someone, they are all criminal act. But there are some civil acts. Civil, what do you mean by civil? Marriage, divorce, inheritance of property. So these are civil acts. So in good countries which are really developed, all the religions, all the caste, class, color, they have more or less same rights under civil code. But in India, there are different rights under the civil code. So that is why there is a huge demand of universal civil code in India, a uniform civil code rather. So, but it is still not there. So let's see. Then Article 45. Earlier it was saying from 6 to 14 years, but by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, now it talks about that early childhood care and education before 6 years. क्योंकि 6 to 14 is now a fundamental right. So now we aspire कि even those who are between 0 to 6 will eventually be covered one day. हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. So that is the intention behind this. Then Article 48 talks about modernizing agriculture and animal husbandry. Article 48. Again, like you can expect this in Western Europe, that high quality like farms are there. They have like jets to spray fertilizers. They have hybrid like Jersey cows and all that. Then 48A, which was added by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, it was to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forest and wildlife. So you can again assume that in a country like Western Europe, people will not like harm the wildlife. 49th talks about protecting the monuments of national importance like Taj Mahal, etc. Article 50 talks about separating the judiciary from the executive. So this is again a very important thing, that judiciary and executive will always be separate. Executive is like cricket player Virat Kohli. Judiciary is like the umpire. Okay, Aleem Dar. So if you ask Virat Kohli to become the umpire, obviously he will be biased. He will always give wide from Indian's batting perspective, and even if there are no balls, he will not call them. So umpire have to be separate. They do not play the game, but they are very important that the game is played in the right spirit. और क्रिकेट के सारे लॉस फॉलो हो रहे हैं. सिमिलरली जुडिशरी इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल कि भाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर को आप डिस्टर्ब मत करो, बेसिक लॉस को फॉलो कर लो. एग्जीक्यूटिव, हु इज एग्जीक्यूटिव? ऑल द मिनिस्टर्स आर एग्जीक्यूटिव, ऑल द आईएएस आईपीएस सिविल सर्वेंट्स आर एग्जीक्यूटिव्स व्हिच आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर एग्जीक्यूशन ऑफ द लॉज. लॉ कौन बनाता है? लेजिस्लेचर. इंडिया में मिनिस्टर्स और लेजिस्लेचर सेम होते हैं, यूएसए में अलग कॉन्सेप्ट होता है. ठीक है. तो फिर है हमारा आर्टिकल 51 विच इज टॉक्स अबाउट इंटरनेशनल पीस एंड सिक्योरिटी. तो उसको कई लोग चौथी क्लासिफिकेशन में भी डाल देते हैं कि भाई इंटरनेशनल प्रिंसिपल्स की क्लासिफिकेशन है. सो वहां पे है आर्टिकल 51. सो आर्टिकल 51 इट टॉक्स अबाउट प्रमोशन ऑफ इंटरनेशनल पीस, just and honorable relations between different countries. Then you have to be obliged by international law and treaty, and dispute settlement is through arbitration. So this was for today's lecture. I'll post the link for the next lecture in the comments. जो DPSP का second part बच गया है. So if they ask you which is the most important directive principles of state policy, so answer is pretty clear. Answer is 39 B and C. So there is no doubt about it, not even 1% iota of doubt, because these take precedence over Article 14 and 19 in fundamental rights. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Polity Motions. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 PM and thank you.